guys, let's talk about symbolism. Hopefully you already watched the YouTube video I attached, which gave you a brief overview of what symbolism is. This recording is going to go into a little bit more depth about how we see symbolism in our everyday lives and also in the text that we read. So first of all, what is symbolism? Well, basically, symbolism is when something represents more than just itself. We see symbolism every single day in our everyday normal lives, as well as in the things that we read and the stuff that we watch. Think of logos for really well-known companies. When you see those logos, you don't think of what the logo actually is, you think of the company that it represents and the products that they provide. That's what symbolism is. So why are we talking about symbolism? Well, in real life, we see it everywhere, not just in logos and things like that, but also in our personal lives. We all have items that mean more to us than other people might think. For instance, maybe you have a birthday card that was the last thing that your grandma sent you before she passed away. To anyone else, that just looks like a birthday card. Everybody gets them. We all have stacks of them laying around that people have given us over the years. But to you, that birthday card is the last thing your grandma ever wrote to you, and that's super meaningful to you. That's a symbol. It's not just a birthday card. It represents something else to you that's very important. Now, because everybody has symbols in their life like this, things that are really important to them and are more than just what they seem, authors also use symbolism in their stories to make their characters more lifelike. If there was a character in a book who didn't have any items that were super meaningful to them, we'd have a really hard time connecting with them because that's not realistic. So authors use symbolism to connect their characters to their readers. Do you guys remember Salva from A Long Walk to Water? Do you remember how we talked about how his tribe, the Dinka, and Nia's tribe, the Nuer, had those patterns of tribal scarring on their face? Now, anyone else who saw those scars would be like, whoa, that's a super extreme type of body modification, like the tattoos and the piercings that you see all over here in America. But to them, it's way more than that. Those scars are actually part of their identity. They show who they are and connect them to their families. Those scars are symbols to them of what their lives are like. Do you remember how that book was all about water and how you have to take long walks to get to water? Think about what water meant to both Salva and Nia. Was it more than just something to drink? It totally was, right? To them, water is life. Salva and the Lost Boys traveled thousands of miles in the desert, never knowing when they were going to get their next drink and if they were going to survive to find it. Nia's family moved every single year so they could be closer to water, and they had to be really careful because the water that they could get to could make them sick. This water meant so much more to them than it does to people like us who have easy access to all kinds of things to drink, and water is no big deal. Empanadas! Let's talk about I Lived on Butterfly Hill. Celeste talks about not just empanadas, but all kinds of food the whole way through the story. Why is food so important to her? Well, for her, she's had to leave behind everything that she knows. The traditional food of her home country connects her to her home and to her family. It means so much more to her than it does to other people. Think about when her friends came over in America to try her food. They had no idea how important those dishes were. They just thought, ooh, this is some tasty foreign food we've never had before. But to her, she was sharing her life with them. That food showed what her family and her home were like. What about this pendulum? The pendulum in the book, was it more to Cristobal and to Celeste than it was to other people? Think about it. And then there's the pelicans. In the beginning of the book, Celeste woke up every morning to see the pelicans flying outside her window, and they made her so happy. They were a part of her happy, stable life. When she left them behind, she thought about them all the time, and when she returned to Valparaiso, it wasn't until the pelicans started to fly by her window again that her life started to feel like it was getting back to normal. Those pelicans, to anyone else, would just look like birds flying through the sky, but to her, they were so important. They represented her happy, stable life and how she was finally going to start to get back to it. And then there's Tom Sawyer. Tom is one of the most superstitious characters you will ever meet. He believes in all kinds of things, and because of that, all kinds of items in the book have symbolic meaning for him. Almost everything means more to him than it does to anybody else. Can you think of any of those things? Here's some examples. Do you remember that andiron knob? This is what an andiron knob looks like. What a weird thing to be carrying around in your pocket, right? To anyone else, it's like, Tom's got a doorknob in his pocket. That's kind of weird, but whatever. If he thinks it's cool, he can carry a doorknob. To Tom, though, it was one of his most precious possessions, and that's why he gave it to Becky Thatcher as a symbol of his love. And when she returned it to him, that was a symbol of his love being crushed. How about a flower? Remember that flower that Becky Thatcher threw out onto the ground for him? He took that flower and he pressed it and he kept it with him because he felt like that was a sign of Becky Thatcher's interest in him. And so it became this symbol of him going to get her to be his fiancée, even though at that point she had not said anything at all to him. What about a dead cat or a howling stray dog? That scene where Tom and Huck go to the cemetery has a lot of their superstitious beliefs that revolve around symbols. A dead cat symbolizes something much more to them than it would to anybody else, as well as a howling stray dog. To us, a cat and a dog, no big deal. Cats and dogs are everywhere. To them, that cat and that dog are important, and they mean something. They're very meaningful to Tom and Huck, and so they are symbols that represent more than just what they are. Aside from just the books that we've read in class, you guys might recognize some of these very famous literary symbols from well-known books. First, we've got Harry Potter. Now that symbol on the left is the sign of the Death Eaters. For those of you who don't know, Death Eaters, really evil wizards. Anyone who doesn't know what Harry Potter is, that could just look like a really sweet design that you might want to doodle on your notebook or get tattooed on your arm. Those of us who know Harry Potter are going, oh no, you don't get that tattooed on your arm. If you get that tattooed on your arm, that means that you are an evil wizard and you want evil things to happen. We know that's not something you want to mess with, whereas other people would see it and not know how symbolic it really is. Another really huge symbol in Harry Potter is Harry Potter's lightning bolt scar. This is a really good example of how symbols can mean different things to different people, depending on their life experiences. To Harry Potter, at first, this lightning bolt scar is something that sets him apart from the rest of the wizarding community and makes everybody look at him like he's special. He does not like it at first. At first, he just wants everyone to leave him alone. He just wants to be a normal kid who can fit in somewhere. But this makes him stand out. Meanwhile, Voldemort has a very different opinion of what this symbolizes. This symbolizes the only person who's ever lived through the killing curse, the one person who got away from him and made his life so difficult. Very different meaning to Harry Potter than it is to Voldemort. Another important thing to know about symbols is that not only can they mean different things to different people, but they can also change meaning from the beginning of a story to the end. At the beginning, this symbol is somebody who survived a killing curse. By the end of the story, this symbolizes to everybody in the wizarding community the one person who might be able to save them. If you move over to the Hunger Games, you'll see there we have the three-fingered salute from the world of the Hunger Games. That three-fingered salute is meant to be a sign of respect, and when they first give it to Katniss, that just shows that they're respecting her decision. By the end of the story, that becomes a symbol of the revolution. People don't use it just to show respect anymore. They show it. They show that sign to tell people that they are part of the rebellion and they believe in what the rebellion is doing. Now, to everyone who believes in the rebellion and the leaders of the rebellion like Katniss, it means one thing, something good that's going to happen from what they're doing. To people like President Snow, it means something totally different, a rebellion that has to be squashed and people that need to be gotten rid of. The Mockingjay is similar. When Katniss first gets the Mockingjay pin, she takes it into the Hunger Games as a symbol to herself of her family, who she's fighting for and who she needs to get back to when she's trying to survive the Hunger Games. And again, by the end of the story, this actually becomes a symbol to everybody in the entire world of the Hunger Games, of the rebellion. So again, it means something to the people who believe in the rebellion and something else to the people in the capital. Here are some symbols that we see in our everyday life. We've got the recycle symbol, the Nike swoosh, the golden arches, the United States flag, the heart, and the Apple logo. Most of these things, when we look at them, we don't think, oh cool, golden arches. No, the first thing we think of is delicious salty fries and hamburgers and milkshakes and all the delicious food you can get at McDonald's that's really bad for you. When we look at that Nike swoosh, we don't think, hey, that's a weird check mark. Nope, we think of all the products that Nike provides for us and what a big company Nike is. When we see that American flag, we don't just think, oh, that's a cool piece of fabric blowing in the breeze. No, that United States flag represents our freedom and our country. Hearts are love, and Apple logos are a huge company with lots of different digital products that we use to make our lives easier. All of these are symbols that we see every single day, and we don't think twice about what the picture actually is because they represent something else to us. Here's what you need to remember about symbolism. Symbolism, or a symbol, is when something represents more than just itself. There are symbols in your everyday life and also in literature. Symbols mean different things to different people. And a symbol's meaning can change as characters experience new things and their perspectives change. Over the next few weeks, we will be discussing the symbolism we see in the text and creating a final project to display important symbols in our own lives. Start thinking about what things in your life are super meaningful to you for more than just what everyone else sees in them.